Om Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshikendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Namami Vidyai Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsarishibhyo Mahatbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopaplavarahita Prajnana Ganaha Pratyagarto Brahmaivahamasmi Om Prapannaparijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrtaduhe Namaha. Pranams everyone. We are doing chapter 1. Chapter 1, doing sloka number. We just finished sloka number 26 to 28, first line. We just go through the slokas again. Sloka 26. Tatra pashyasthitan partah pitrunata pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrun Putran pautran sakim stata Shvashuran suhrudaschaiva Senayorubayorapi Tan samikshya kaunteya Sarvan bandhunavastitan Kripaya paraya vishtaha Vishidan abravit. So this is where Arjuna's transformation happens. So once Arjuna goes there and he sees the warriors on the other side, he doesn't see them as enemies anymore. Rather, he sees them as his relatives, his friends. And he sees various relatives. That was what was described here. Remember, this is all Sanjaya Vacha. Sanjaya says that Arjuna sees this way. Arjuna has not opened his mouth yet, but Arjuna's mind is being described here. And in the 28th sloka, the first line, he says, Kripaya paraya vishtaha vishidan idam abravit. So basically, Arjuna faces or is overpowered by attachment. A sense of attachment comes into him, and that attachment basically makes him feel that he is going to lose his grandfather, his guru, and that leads to a sorrow in his mind. That sorrow, Vishidam. Vishidam means grief, sorrow. So the sorrow comes in. Idam abravit. Grievingly, he said the following words. So grieving, he was overpowered by deep attachment. Paraya kripaya. He says the following words. So Arjuna, who was so far had been very rational, so far who had been very clear in what his goal was, so far had been very clear on what his role of Kshatriya was. Remember, Kshatriya's role is to uphold Dharma. It doesn't matter whether who is on the other side. But in spite of that, now he has actually become more emotional. His samsara is showing up. And he is now cutting a sorry figure. And then idam abravit. Idam means the following. Abravit means he said. Saha abravit. I will go to sloka number 28, second line. And we will do until 30. Arjuna uvacha दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपुतुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं संसृते हस्तात् त्वक्षैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः। अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपुतुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं स्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक्षैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः। We'll do this 31 first line also. निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव. So Arjuna Uvacha. Now Arjuna speaks. Remember, until Sloka 28 first line, from 26 through 28, Vyasacharya showed the problem of raga, the attachment, the first symptom of samsara. Now from 28 to 31, Vyasacharya is basically showing the second symptom of samsara. The second symptom is basically sorrow, grief. From raga, we are going to shoka. And then from shoka, we will go to the next step, which is called the moha or delusion. Now we are in this set of slokas, we are going to deal with the issue of shoka, sorrow. Let's do a small vichara on sorrow. See, if Bhagavan had not given this emotion called shoka or dukkam we can say, shoka or dukkam. If Bhagavan had not given this emotion at all among human beings, then none of us would even will try to attain Bhagavan. Why is it so? Suppose if whatever we wish, it happens. Whatever we desire, we are able to acquire. Whatever we want, we are able to get. Or even if we fail to get, we do not bother. We do not get this emotion of shoka or dukkam. Suppose if that is the case, then what will happen is, this ahankara of ours, it will never surrender. It will never surrender to anybody. And therefore, we will not try to attain Bhagavan at all. But right now, we have this emotion called shoka. And what happens? Nobody desires for shoka. Nobody wants to be in dukkam. Because, let's say, is there anybody in this world who would say, look, I am bored being happy for so long. I do not want to be happy. I want to take up some dukkam. I want to be in some grief. I want to get some sorrow. Will anybody say that? No. Nobody wants sorrow. Of course, people do go to movies in theaters and enjoy watching a sad movie, a kind of a tragedy. They would want to watch that. But they themselves would not want to be sad. Never, not at all. Then the question comes, then why do people at all go and watch these tragedies? That's because the person already have some sadness in their mind. They already have, and then they see that the sadness or dukkam or shoka is not limited to only them, and it is there for others also. Then there is a kind of a psychological comfort that one derives out of it. And that's the reason many of us we would like to watch a tragedy on the cinemas. And it's the same case, like, in we have this power cuts when we were young. When we have this power cuts, then what do? We first go, we do not check with the electricity board whether there is a power cut. We just first go out and see whether the neighbor's house lights are burning or not. And if we notice that theirs are also not burning and they do not have any power also, then we are satisfied. That is our kind of psychological comfort, that we are not alone in this suffering. So nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to be in dukkha. We do not look for shoka. This ahamkara does not desire any shoka at all. But in spite of it, we do experience shoka. We do experience dukkham. And what happens then? That is when the ahankara within us realizes that there is something above us. And there is something above us, and only because of that we are experiencing this, what we don't desire, which is this shoka. If somebody experiences shoka and they say that, look, things are not in my hand, there seems to be something beyond my control, above me, there is some power beyond me. If they realize that, then they are intelligent. If they don't realize that, then it's sad to say. So shoka or a dukkham is a way for us to identify that there is some power beyond us, and this shoka has to be used as a stepping stone to attain that Ishvara, that power. And shoka, this sorrow, this grief, this dukkham will have to become a sadana then. It becomes a way to attain Bhagavan or Ishvara. Just like bhakti is an emotion through which we attain Ishvara, shoka is also to be treated as an emotion to attain Ishvara. Yoga, bhakti yoga we say. Bhakti yoga means the sadhana of bhakti. Yoga in that sense is referred as sadhana. That's why in the first chapter, the chapter name is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means sorrow. Arjuna's sorrow. And it is linked with yoga. You can also say title there. You can also use that as a sadhana. Whenever in life we get shoka, whenever we get a sorrow, whenever we get into a difficult situation, whenever we get into grief, we need to understand, we need to realize that it is a step to the spiritual path. Valmiki started Ramayana only after getting into shoka. You would have heard of the story where how Valmiki started Ramayana. Take the example of Buddha. Buddha went into a spiritual path because of shoka, because he was sorrow. He went into a sorrow that after all that could be old age, disease and death. He went into sorrow, and that's how he went into spiritual path. So shoka is an important step towards spirituality. In life, whenever we get into shoka, we have to pause, reflect, and then use that to channel ourselves towards the spiritual path. There is a joke, right? Whenever people see some sannyasis, they say, some people at least they say, in Tamil they say, enna kashtamo avar pavam sannyasa eduthuttaar. I don't know what difficulty he had. He has to give up everything and take up sannyasa, as if that shoka is a step towards spiritual life. Not that all sannyasis take up sannyasa or because of some dukkha. But it is definitely, in our culture, we always link these two, Shoka and spirituality. In fact, many people would have probably started listening to Gita only after they face some, difficult issues at home or outside. Only when they have these problems, then they start listening to Gita. It is okay. Doesn't matter. I mean, Shoka has to be used in that manner only. It is not for one to be depressed, sitting in a corner, crying. It is to be channelized towards spirituality. Shoka as an emotion is samsara. We have seen about samsara already. Now, this Shoka is very specific to humans alone. Generally, animals do not experience this. Generally, animals go through pain, but this Shoka or suffering is different from pain. Pain is kind of inevitable. Every Jivarasi in this world will have to face pain. Pleasure and pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. We decide whether we want to suffer or not. Suffering is mental, pain is physical. And we'll have to differentiate these both. Some people also have this misconception that, once a person is considered spiritual, then that person will not have any pain. As in, if he is actually a sannyasi or a monk, he shouldn't have any headache, that person should not have any body ache, that person should be like, can be awake 24/7, that kind of things. They have this wrong notions. Studying shastras is not for relieving pain. Pain is inevitable. It is for removing the effect of pain, which is shoka. The studying shastras will not remove pain, will not remove the unfavorable conditions or unfavorable situations that our prarabdha will bring us to. Remember, our prarabdha will bring favorable conditions as well as unfavorable conditions. And we will have to go through both. And especially for human beings, there will be a mixture of both, favorable and unfavorable. The punya prarabdha will bring us favorable situations. The papa prarabdha will bring us unfavorable situations. So whether it is, and any human form, even if Bhagavan takes up a human form, they will have to go through this favorable and unfavorable situations. That's why you had Rama going through favorable and unfavorable situations. Rama was supposed to be coronated one day, then the next day he was asked to go to forest. And he had to be in forest. Although he was a prince, he had a very difficult life. Same with Krishna. Krishna was, although a Bhagavan, he was born in a prison, and he was actually had a very difficult life. Current age, whether it is Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Ramana Maharishi, they will have to all go through these prarabdhas. They will have to go through pain, but they are not affected by sorrow. We know how Rama had taken both the news when he was asked to when he was said that he will be crowned as a prince the next day, and then the next day when he was asked to go to forest, both the information, both the news he had taken in the same manner. He was neither overjoyed by the previous day's news, nor he was saddened and depressed by the next day's news. So they are not affected by sorrow. What is Shoka? We'll again go through in chapter 2. When we actually do chapter 2, we'll again discuss about Shoka, because in fact Bhagavan's first Upadesha starts with that only, with Shoka only. He says, Asocyan Anvasho Chastvam. He talks about Shoka only. We'll see about Shoka later again. But we don't need to explain Shoka much here, because Raga we had to explain. Because Raga we are not even aware of our attachment. So anything that we are not aware, or we have not been able to understand what it is, we need to explain. But Shoka we all experience. We all experience sorrow in one way or other. We would have experienced sorrow so far in our life. We will be experiencing until the end of our life. So there is nothing more, nothing different that we need to explain here. So here too, Sanjaya, when he actually explains this, he is not explaining the Shoka, but he is basically saying that, describing the effects of Shoka. So in this place what happens? Arjuna's mind has already got Shoka. Remember, it's not pain. And what is the Shoka? What is the cause for this? What is the reason for his sorrow? He feels his loved ones, the people whom he is attached to, are going to die. And the worst thing is, they are going to be killed by him. Now what happens? That separation, or the possible separation, he is not separated yet, but the possible separation is the cause for the sorrow. And that sorrow comes from the attachment. So how Arjuna is going to describe Arjuna Vacha now. So this time it's Arjuna Vacha, and Arjuna is going to describe how this Shoka has affected him. And he says, Drishtvemam Swajanam Krishna. Krishna, O Krishna, Drishtva imam. Imam means whoever is in front of my eyes. Imam, whoever is in front. Drishtva, having seen though whoever is in front of my eyes. Swajanam. Swa means me, mine, my. Janam means people. Having seen whoever in front of my eyes, or having seen these, my people, or as in the relatives of mine, they are relatives of mine. Swajanam, they are all my people. Yuyutsum samupastitam. Samupastitam means who are assembled. Yuyutsum means eager to fight. So Arjuna is basically saying, seeing these relatives of mine who are assembled eager to fight, O Krishna, having seen these people who are there eager to fight with me here, these are relatives of mine, what happens to me? He is going to explain in the next sloka. After seeing them, what happens to him? Sloka 29, he says, Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishusyati. Sidanti mama gatrani. Mama gatrani. Mama means my. Gatrani means limbs. That is hands and legs. Gatrani. Mama gatrani. Sidanti. Sidanti means are shaking. My limbs are shaking. My limbs are getting weaker. My limbs are drooping. Mukham cha parishusyati. Cha mukham, and my mouth. Mukham means mouth. Sometimes it's face. This in Tamil we say mukham means face. Mukham also means mouth. Mukham parishusyati. Parishusyati means drying up. See, when you are in deep sorrow, this is what happens. When you are in deep sorrow, your limbs might shake. Your mouth becomes dry. Then it says, Veputuscha sharireme. Vepatuhu. Vepatuhu means shiver. Which is shivering? Sharireme. in my body. I see shiver in my body. My body is shivering. Roma harshascha jayate. Roma harshascha means, that hair standing on its end. Roma harshascha. In English they say horripilation. This hair standing on an end can happen in extreme emotions. When somebody is extremely happy, it stands up. Or when somebody is in extreme sorrow, it stands up. Just like the tears from our eyes, it can come when we are extremely in joy or when we are in sorrow also. So the same effect it has on that part of the body, although the emotions could be extreme. So here the hair standing on its end. Jayate, occur. So basically what happens, the effect of his sorrow is now shown on his or seen on his physical body. He is basically not saying that he is under sorrow. Basically he is giving the effects of the sorrow on his physical body. He says, my limbs droop, my mouth dries up, my body shivers, and my hair stand on its end. So the sorrow's effect is seen in Arjuna. And further he says more. He says, Gandivam sramsate hastat. Gandiva is the bow of Arjuna. Gandiva sramsate. Sramsate means it slips. It slips when you are in deep sorrow, or when you hear some news which is unexpected, you tend to drop what is in your hands. So Gandivam slips. And remember, Gandivam is Arjuna's prized possession. He would not allow it to fall anywhere. He would actually keep it with respect, take it with respect. He will not allow it to be treated in any other manner, which is his prized possession. His bow, hastat, sramsate hastat, it slips from my hand. It's all narrated by Arjuna himself. Tvakchaiva paridahyate. Tvakchaiva, cha iva. Cha iva means and. Tvak paridahyate. Tvak means skin. Skin paridahyate. Paridahyate means burns. So my skin is burning, Krishna. My Gandiva, my bow is slipping. My skin is burning. Imagine the effect of that sorrow. This shows how much he has been affected. And typically this kind of physical change happens when you are in deep sorrow, almost reach the end of sorrow. Some people, they make an issue of even a small pain. A small needle prick, they will make a big issue. Or a small headache, they will make a big issue. They will make sure that everyone in the family knows that they are having this pain or headache or whatever. It's not like this. Now Arjuna is in severe sorrow. Further he says, Nacha shaknomi avastatum. Nacha shaknomi avastatum. Chana shaknomi. And I am not able. Na shaknomi. I am not able. What? Avastatum. I am not able to even stand up. I am not even able to stand. I don't have the strength to stand up. Why? Why does he not able to have this? Why does he not have the strength to stand? Brahmativa cha me manaha. Brahmativa cha me manaha. And my mind, manaha, Brahmati iva. My mind is spinning. my reeling, my mind also reels, as it were. In other words, I am fainting. This is all describes, basically this is the description that Arjuna gives of himself, of his physical body to Krishna on what he is going through. And all these are effects of Shoka, sorrow. Further he says in Sloka 31, first line, Nibittani cha pashyami viparitani Keshava. Keshava, O Krishna. Pashyami. Pashyami means I see. Viparitani. Viparitani. In Tamil also we use the word viparitama. Viparitani Keshava. Viparitani means adverse. Adverse. Nimittani. Nimittani means omens. I see bad omens. I see adverse omens. See, when we are in this, when our mind becomes weak, when we are in the sorrowful state, we see things around us and we see them in the negative light. We will not be able to see anything positive. In Tamil we say Sakunam. This is called as Shakunam. Shakunam Pakal. So, when our mind is weak, or when when we wake up and we have we think that there could be a bad day ahead for us, even before the day has started, we would say, today is going to be a bad day for me. And when somebody tries to actually sort of convince you that it's not the case, they will say, no, I can see that today is going to be a bad day. What happens when our mind becomes weak? Everything around us, we see them as wrong only. The same situation, if our mind is strong or normal, we would not see them any different. But once our mind becomes weak, the same situation, we will be seeing them as wrong. And we would be seeing them as bad omen. I shouldn't have seen this fellow while going out, or I shouldn't have taken that particular bus, or I shouldn't have worn that particular shirt. We would see everything as a bad omen when the mind becomes weak, or when we are in deep sorrow. Arjuna says, I am seeing everything around me as bad omens now. That means he is in intense sorrow. Arjuna is going through deep depression. Remember, any emotional problem is a thought. It is a thought. Emotional problem is a thought. But it is not a single thought. It has been built up over several thoughts. A single thought will not take us to sorrow. A single thought will not take us to anger. A single thought will not take us to jealousy. A single thought will not take us to depression. The first thought that comes to our mind, we will not have any control on it. That is fine. But what we do after that, what is the sankalpa that we have in our mind, how we nurture the thoughts, that leads us to either anger, jealousy, sorrow, depression, whatever it could be. And what is that sankalpa we do? We kind of repeat that thought again and again in our mind. For example, I met this person said this thing. That person saying that thing is just one particular thought. Then if we actually close our eyes and then we say, that person said to me because he was doing this, or maybe he said that because I am like this. He shouldn't have said that. Did he say that to other person? We start putting things on our mind again and again, and then we develop this thought that could either deal to jealousy or anger or sorrow. That's what happens. Just by a single thought or a single action, no emotional problem comes to us. But just by actually nurturing that, by doing that sankalpa within our mind, we convert that thought, that's over multiple thoughts, we actually build that and we take it as a problem, we build it as a problem. Now here Arjuna, for him also it's not a single thought, it's been built up. And now this, who was once a courageous Arjuna, who could have actually beaten this Kaurava army single-handedly, now he is going through intense depression. The extension of sorrow. It's not sorrow that he is in depression. So 28 to 31 basically explains or gives Arjuna's sorrow. It explains Arjuna's grief, Arjuna's depression. So this is, and then Sloka 31, second line. Nacha shreyo nupashyami hatva swajanamahave. Nacha shreyo nupashyami hatva swajanamahave. So here, from here until now it has been depression. From now until Sloka 46, which is the penultimate sloka. This chapter has got 47 slokas. Until Sloka 46, from 31 to 46, the third emotion, the third state of mind of Arjuna is kind of explained or comes to the fore. The third mindset, what is that? Mohaha, delusion, wrong thinking. So what happens? Attachment is as explained. Kripaya paraya vishtaha. That attachment was actually made clear by Arjuna, that is his attachment, by saying Swajanam Krishna. These are all my people, or Krishna. These are all my relatives. So that attachment comes. And then from the attachment, we saw sorrow. So attachment leads to sorrow. Now sorrow is going to lead to delusion. And this is true for every one of us. Not that Arjuna's case only attachment will lead to sorrow and sorrow will lead to delusion. Everybody, anybody or any one of us, if we have attachment, it will lead to sorrow, and from sorrow it will lead to delusion. So the effect of moha is going to be seen in the coming slokas. Now before going to these slokas, we will do a small vichara on moha. Raga, we saw that to be attachment. Raga, in this case, the name that was given was Kripa. Kripaya paraya vishtha. Kripa means attachment here. One outcome of raga, we said, is Shoka. And another outcome of raga is basically moha. So if we really look at this, what is the root cause of delusion? The root cause of delusion is not Shoka, but actually the root cause is attachment. Shoka's root cause is also attachment. Moha's root cause is also attachment. So whenever we feel any sorrow, wherever we feel any grief, wherever we feel shoka, you can be sure that there is attachment there. What we need to do is to identify where that attachment is. Wherever we are feeling sorrow, we just need to reflect and then think. And if we think, we will be able to identify the object of attachment. Similarly, wherever there is attachment, we can also see there will be moha, there will be delusion. Now, before we go into moha, we need to understand the workings of our mind. If we understand the workings of our mind, we will be able to understand moha a little better. See, this mind is called as antahkaranam. Antahkaranam means, karanam means instrument. Antaha means inner. It is invisible, it is not visible, and therefore it is called as antahkaranam. Whereas this eyes, mouth, skin, legs, hands, these are all called as bahya karanam. Bahya karanam means outside. Basically, it's also an instrument for us, but these are all visible instruments. Whereas the mind is an invisible instrument. And the mind is actually divided into two. Mind and intellect. Although we say manas can be divided into two, mind and intellect. When we study Sukshma Sharira, we can also divide them into four. Sometimes we divide them Antakaranam as four. It's only one instrument, but we divide them into four depending on the functions. So either it is Manas, Buddhi, Chittam, Ahankara we say, or sometimes we just divide them into two, which is Manaha and Buddhi, mind and intellect. Mind is made up of thoughts. Intellect is also made of thoughts only. Mind, so what kind of thoughts make up the mind? And what kind of thoughts make up the intellect then? So whatever thoughts or whichever thoughts make us doubtful, whichever thoughts make us desire something, whichever thoughts make us angry, whichever thoughts make us jealous, or whichever thoughts are the cause for our emotions or feelings, those flow of thoughts are called as mind. So anything that is doubtful or anything that is a cause for emotion is called as mind. We say sankalpam vikalpamatmakam manaha. Sankalpam vikalpamatmakam manaha. Whereas what about the thoughts that make up the intellect? Whichever thought takes decision. So there is a situation, it takes a decision. That portion is called as intellect. Or we say nishchayatmika buddhihi. Buddhi is one which takes decisions. So whenever we are thinking whether we want to do that or not, whenever the thought comes to our mind, should I attend today's class or not? Then it is the mind. Then I say, okay, I will attend the class. Then that thought comes from the intellect. That is what Shastra says. Shastra says the one that actually is doubtful is the mind. The thoughts that are doubtful in nature are mind. The thoughts that make the decision are from the intellect. Same instrument, single antakaranam only. And the thoughts that make up the emotions are also from the mind. The thoughts are also from the mind. So that which creates doubt is also mind. That which creates emotion is also the mind. The thoughts that decide are from the intellect. Now we saw raga as an emotion. Raga emotion that was in Arjuna's mind. That gave rise to Shoka. Shoka is also an emotion. The raga's impact on mind is Shoka. The raga's impact on intellect is called moha. So the attachment, there is an emotion that is in our mind, which is attachment. That attachment has an influence on the mind. That influence on the mind is Shoka. It has an influence on the intellect also. That influence is called as moha. That impact is called as moha. Now Arjuna's mind has already taken a beating. His mind has already been afflicted by sorrow. Raga has already afflicted his mind, and that has come out in the sloka so far in the form of grief. Now, this attachment is going to take or is going to affect his intellect also. So, the same raga gives two problems, one at the mind, another on the intellect. Actually speaking, raga gives multiple problems. That's why attachment is the root cause of all problems we say. The entire samsara, if it has to be pinned down on a single problem, then that single problem is said to be attachment according to our shastras. Because the raga can actually not just have sorrow, the effect is not just sorrow. Other feelings like anger, jealousy, pride, all comes out of attachment only. Attachment at various levels. The attachment could be on others, the attachment could be on our body, the attachment could be on our physical appearance, on our intellect, or on our educational qualifications. It is all attachment at various levels leading to various problems. But the root cause of all the problems or all samsara is raga. Now here we will just using raga, shoka and moha. So moha is delusion, and this delusion is affecting the intellect. What is the nature of intellect, or what should intellect be doing? Intellect is the skill of making decisions. It determines nishchayatmika buddhi. It is the one which decides things. And intellect is the one when it decides, it also decides what is dharma, what is adharma, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. All these things are determined by intellect. Whether should I do it or not, whether it is good or bad, whether it is right or wrong, that kind of thoughts the mind does it. But ultimately the intellect makes the call and says this is right, this is good, this is dharma. And what happens when we grow up as a kid, the intellect, or as children at that age, the intellect is not fully developed. When we are growing up as children, our intellect is not fully developed. But once we grow into an adult, it should be fully developed. Because the child does not know what is good, what is bad. The child will put mud in its mouth. We will not take it wrongly. We will not actually, will not feel, will not make fun of the child. Because we know that the child's intellect is not fully developed. It does not know what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. It doesn't know. Suppose the child kicks the father. The father does not get angry because he sees the reason behind it. The child's intellect is not fully developed. Now, when the child grows up, becomes an adult, and then he says, I will kick my father, or I will put mud in my mouth. Then what happens? We know the father will get extremely angry. Because the father expects the intellect of the child to have been fully developed. And the child or the adult now should know what is right and what is wrong. So for every human being, once the intellect is developed, it should have the natural capacity to discriminate between what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is dharma, what is adharma. This is a natural trait of the intellect. Natural trait. But this can be misused. We will see that later. But this is natural. Some people may argue that the intellect may not know what is good, what is right, what is dharma, what is adharma, and therefore they do mistakes. No, it doesn't. It's not that way. For example, a thief knows what is correct and what is not. That is why when a thief is stealing, he does it without anyone's knowledge. Because if he knows that what he does can be right, then he will do it in front of everybody. Why would he do it without the person's knowledge? So everybody knows what is right and what is wrong. That's why even a thief, he steals is fine, but he doesn't want others to steal from him. He knows what is right. He knows what shouldn't be done to others. So it's not that there's no question of somebody not knowing what is right and what is wrong. Even as young children when they grow up, they know that there are certain things that they cannot do, they cannot go to some places. As they grow up as teens or young adults, there are certain things that they should not talk, they should not go, they should not eat, they should not drink, all those things. But they do it without the parents' knowledge. So which means they know that these things are not to be done, and therefore they are doing it without somebody's knowledge. So the intellect by nature knows what is right, what is wrong. Now what does this raga do, this attachment? The raga basically alters what is natural and it shows a different picture. So when this happens, so the raga, the attachment basically shows a different picture to the intellect. And when this happens, we say the intellect is clouded. The intellect is clouded. Or we say the intellect is besieged by moha. The intellect is taken over by delusion. Moha basically makes us think what is correct to be what is wrong, and what is wrong to be correct. An attachment on a certain thing. Suppose, for example, somebody is attached to drinking. His intellect will now justify that there is nothing wrong in drinking, because the attachment on the drinks have convinced him to show what is right as wrong and what is wrong as right. Attachment will convince us and make us believe it totally. What is actually good, it will make us believe that it is bad. And what is actually bad, it will make us religiously follow that. And the problem also here is, when a person is deluded, this person is not even aware that I am deluded. So they are not even in a position to say that maybe what I am thinking is wrong, or what I am thinking is right, or I am actually deluded. So this moha, what does it do? What is naturally available for us, the natural discriminative power that we have, is reversed by moha. And moha comes only where attachment is. That's why when there is no attachment, we are able to pass correct judgments. When we are asked to advise people, we do it perfectly fine. We are able to say what is right, what is wrong, that you shouldn't be doing this is dharma, this is adharma. We will be able to give a fantastic lecture. But once an object of attachment is in the mix, then what happens? Our intellect gets clouded. That's why advising others is easy, following our advice is difficult. This is the effect of moha. And we think our enemies are outside. Our enemies are not outside. Our enemies are within us. In fact, our biggest enemy is the clouded intellect. And moha is extremely dangerous because it leads to our destruction. And the destruction in turn leads to pain, the pain in turn leads to sorrow, the sorrow again goes back to delusion, then delusion leads to pain, pain leads to sorrow, and it is a vicious circle. So this moha is we have to be very wary of. Once we come out of the moha, you will say, oh, I shouldn't have taken that decision, or I should not have talked like that. Until the time when we are in moha or delusion, we will not realize that. Now, what happens here? Coming back here, Arjuna's mind has reached that stage. Now, what has happened right now is, we will see in the coming slokas, what is wrong, Arjuna will start to understand them as right. And he will start justifying. Whatever is wrong, he will justify them to be right, and whatever is right, he will justify them to be wrong. These are the side effects of moha. More about moha and more on, we'll see more further slokas in the next class. Any questions or comments? If not, we will again see in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.